My name is Bralove, and I'm a seminarian for the Archdiocese of Washington. This is my vocation story. I grew up in Chevy Chase, Maryland, in a loving family of 5. My family isn't Catholic, and there wasn't much of an emphasis on organized religion growing up. The first passion that really guided and motivated me was medicine. At the age of 16, I began to volunteer at the Wheaton Volunteer Rescue Squad and knew that I wanted to be a physician. In college, I dedicated all my pursuits to that goal. I went to Cornell University to major in chemistry and build a comprehensive, competitive resume to apply to medical school. While most of my time was consumed with academics, deeper questions about life, its meaning, its purpose, began to creep into my consciousness. Why am I doing all this work? What is the point? Does any of it really matter? God first led me to the Episcopal Church, where I was baptized as an adult and attended for the majority of college. However, by the end of my undergraduate studies, I had become increasingly distressed and unsatisfied with the contradictory theologies that were embraced by the Episcopal Church. This led me to the Catholic Church, and while I was initially drawn to her teachings, I became more and more fascinated with her Eucharistic faith. I was received into the church and confirmed in my senior year just before heading off to medical school at Boston University. I spent the next 4 years of my life learning about medicine and my faith. I was spending long hours in the library, but was also beginning to attend occasional weekday masses and Eucharistic adoration. I loved what I was learning in school, but also felt an increasing attraction to our Lord in the Eucharist. At that point in my life, I have to admit, I wasn't living my faith perfectly, but our Lord was patient with me and worked on my stubborn heart little by little, and I began to be transformed slowly by His hand. After graduating from medical school, I moved to New York City and to specialize in emergency medicine. I worked in 2 hospitals located in the Bronx. They treated some of the city's poorest and were high-volume trauma centers for patients often victims of violent crime. While my skills and knowledge about how to heal continued to grow, it became clear to me that some of my patients needed more than just physical healing. So often their medical problems were the products of or exacerbated by deep spiritual wounds that the medical world simply didn't have time to address. They also didn't have the expertise. I began to more seriously wonder if I was being called to a more different type of healing. But I was conflicted. I loved what I was doing and wasn't sure if I was called to something else. I felt in my heart that God may be calling me to be His priest and bring that needed spiritual healing to the infirm. When I finished residency and was practicing independently, I knew that I could better discern God's call for me. I stayed in New York City to practice and to teach emergency medicine, and I loved teaching and the independence of practicing on my own. I was making big money, traveling the world, doing all the things that I was supposed to be doing to lead a successful life. But I wasn't satisfied. With the spiritual director and through prayer, I came to the conclusion that I couldn't resolve this tension in my heart between the life I had created for myself and the one that I felt God may be calling me to. I had to make changes in my life. I started spending less time late night on the town and more time with our Lord in prayer. I began to read about the priesthood and testimonies about the vocation. I, little by little, began to reorient my life, which had been so self-interested and self-focused, so that I could focus instead on Him. Time at Mass and adoration and frequent confession helped me to grow closer to the mystery of His sacrifice, which is at the heart of His priesthood. I felt that God was asking me to make a sacrifice as well, as an act of trust. I decided to leave medicine, the Big Apple, and come home to DC to enter seminary. I can say a few years later that not every part of that change was easy, and there were certainly some bumps along the way. But I can say that these years have been the most amazing, grace-filled years of my life. In retrospect, what God asked me to sacrifice was nothing compared to what He gave to me and will continue to give to me if I trust in His providential care. If you think God is asking you to make a similar act of trust, do not be afraid and hear the words of St. John Paul II. Open wide the doors to Christ. In your charity, please pray for me as I continue my discernment. I will be praying for you.